in the lands, particularly in environmental voice regarding Onondaga Lake and so forth, so that the argument that you're trying to take back land and would disrupt people who have been living on it for 200 years would not stand. I don't know where that will go, but that's the approach that they're taking now.
But that's a non-intercourse act stuff.
I think that was the same approach they did at the time the 99-year lease went up on Salamanca. And you heard the same thing, that we just want to kick them out, take all their land, and it didn't matter about the people. And just from that alone caused so much fear within the people who own these houses. All they thought is, like you said, what are we going to do? We're going to do harm to them, or massacre a whole group of people just because of the lease went up. But they really thought that they would not take that land and give it back to Salamanca. But they were wrong. And what they were also wrong is that we did not kick them off their property. And so my thinking is that the Haudenosaunee people never want any land, whether they take it under the government at all, because they know how the government is and they can always take it back. And in order to stay truly sovereign, we either keep it amongst ourselves or we don't as a nation. And that's why we will fight to get it, but not, we don't want it in trust. I don't think any of the Haudenosaunee land should
You have to make that decision.
And that message is so important. I live on Oneida land, and I can say from my neighbors, people, the fear is, and it's not, the fear turns to hatred. The hatred is incredible. And the hate groups that have been formed, many with Christian names, of people gathering together to make sure those Indians don't take our land. And that's how an issue that we understand from a particular perspective is seen by a whole nother body. And why we need to have a voice in helping people understand that.
And even if you don't go for the land, but as the Penobscot and Passamaquoddy did in Maine in 1980, and they took a financial settlement. I grew up in an Anglo culture, and so I never experienced racism. Till one day I was singing at a campground in the summertime in Conway, New Hampshire, and there was a family that came, and after the sing-along, they came up because they heard that I was from Maine. And so we were having a grand time. But it was obvious that these people lived in the area that was part of the Indian lands claim, and they had gone through that fear that they were going to lose it. Because I made the statement, because in Maine, you have to go back 37 generations in order to be considered a native Mainer. So I just made the joke. I said, no one can say I'm not a native Mainer because my heritage is with the Penobscot people. And the mother's face just fell. And she looked at me, and we'd been chatting and everything. She said, "Oh, goodbye." And she turned around with her children and walked away up the beach. And I said to myself, wow, is that what I thought it was? And yeah, it was. And this was probably 15 years after the settlement. But as you say, fear turns to hatred. And there was a family that wanted nothing to do with the native people in Maine.
Any other comments? How does Native American rights attorneys handle any of this stuff?
Well, I'm a general practitioner in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so I don't deal with these kind of land claims. But one thing that Vine Deloria said often in class, he said, you know, go back and look at your treaties and understand your treaties. And I always kind of question why, what's the big deal with the treaties? Because we all know that they're broken, and government's not going to abide by them. And I began to realize that in part, he was telling us that to make sure we understood the legal basis. But it was also go back and understand your history and understand what the treaties provided for and understand where you're at now. And so I think that a lot of the land claims and things that begin at the root of what was the initial reservation, what was the initial allotment, and then going through the history of it it's a long process of understanding the historical background, and then the process of the litigation. For Oneida, I think it's been since '78 or something like that, and they're still going on. So, do you have?
Yeah, I appreciate your research, because this is a topic I've been researching, and a couple of the sources
Speak up. Speak up.
A couple of the sources that I got on the Marshall ruling said that he pulled a lot from a history book that he had written. I'll just toss that out there. But the other thing I wanted to add, Jeff, was I almost think the World Council of Churches is also taking a stand against the.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yes, I don't think I was across the board mentioning everyone that has, and I think that this has become more of an area of discussion. I think we're seeing more churches becoming aware of this and taking issue with it and saying, we're not going to have that as any further association with it, and I think that's a good step. Small step, but a good step.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
I like what Jeff said, talking about doing research, and I think that's a real key issue that we need to do as a CONAM, is that I think that we need to go back and read what the history is of our relationship with our conference, our churches in our area, and maybe even get somebody to share with us the treaties of those tribes that are in your area, to research that, maybe have some of the Indian people, because this might be a way for us to get the Indian people to be involved in the CONAMs, because then they're going to see us, dealing with those issues that are of concern to them, rather than a church issue, but it's a community issue that we might want to do. One of my, the chairman for my tribe years ago was John Baker. And the thing that I used to like about him was he would say to us, when the Bureau of Indian Affairs came out with a booklet of the laws, he would say, you need to read it. You need to understand it. Don't let somebody else tell you what it says. You understand it, so that, just like Jeff did, is to answer those questions because you know it. And I think those are the things that we need to do, is to find out what those treaties do stand for, so that if we have to work with the World Council of Churches, we could say, these are the tribes that have these issues, and that we're going to work with them. And I think this is our research time. This is definitely research time, because we can't just say, be nice to Indians. We can't say that anymore. We have to have the reason why we're doing this. And as you notice, I just really got an aha moment, is that they use this doctrine to justify not seeing the sovereignty state of nations. If they can keep us in that heathen, uncivilized state, the doctrine wins. But I think that if we as a church can say, these are sovereign nations, and this is what a nation is, that maybe it might, with the World Council of Churches, maybe work with the Catholic Church. I mean, that's the entity that might be able to work with the Catholic. And we have a lot of Native Americans who are Catholics. And so...
I'm glad you said that. Where are many of our people? They are in Rome today.
Oh, for Tekakwitha.
Yes.
Yes. yes, yes.
Yeah, my friend took his daughter and her husband to Montreal. She has nothing to do with church, but her mother-in-law is Catholic. They all got a good rate.
Yeah.
They're all traveling to Rome.
Yeah.
Rome is full of Indians. right?
Yeah. This might be the time to, if we knew that, we could have rallied them, huh? Yeah. Yes, Roseanne.
They just make a Native American a saint.
That's the one, Tecumseh. Yeah, Tecumseh is a saint. Yeah, yeah. But I think this is something that we can look at as CONAMs, and that our organization can look at is, let's go do some research, because we just can't say, because we're Indians, we want this done. We're gonna have to do the legal work and the information that we have in our own community. So I thank Jeff for saying this to us, because I think if that's the next step. What do we do? And what might be the next steps that we might do? Yes, Kate?
Does anybody know the recent UN adoption of the Declaration of Indigenous Rights? Wasn't there a piece in that
Yes.
denouncing the doctrine?
Yes, yes, there was.
Which is another huge.
Yes, yes. And we might, and that's one of the things that we might want to look at on our website, is as we look at this, to pull that information and put that on there so people can see that. And then as we work on it, we can say, this is where we're at as a committee, that we want people to work on. Yes.
Your answer to that, United States, New Zealand,
Australia,
Australia, and Canada. And the ones who have signed off for that was New Zealand, Canada, the United States did not, finally Australia did.
No, the United States did, but they changed it.
They changed their mind, so they
Yeah.
said no.
They-
So you
no,
still
they-
have,
They changed the language. They took out the teeth.
They take out the what?
The teeth.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So those are the kind of things that we need to look at. You know, what do we need to work on? So tomorrow, as we look at our next quadrennial plan, we need to put that in there to say, this is specifically what we're going to do. Because if we don't have a plan, we're all gonna go home and then say, gee, Cynthia, why didn't you do this? And it's like, well, because you didn't tell me what to do, or you didn't tell us what we're gonna do. So let's be really specific about that. It is 7:30. We're ending pretty much on time, but I wanted Chiwa.